This little girl was being stalked by her teacher and then she went missing. In 1991, Jessyca Mullenberg was 8 years old and in the 3rd grade. Jessica's parents divorced when she was very young, but she would still go to her dad's house on the weekends. It's actually pretty similar to the setup I had with my own divorced parents when I was little. Jessyca loved art and writing her own stories and playing with the other kids in the neighborhood. And at this time, a new boy had just moved in right next door to Jessica's mom's house. The boy had just moved in with his single father, a man named Stephen Oliver. And Stephen took a really odd interest in little 8-year-old Jessyca. Stephen would say that he was only interested in Jessyca because she was a good writer, and he wanted to mold her writing into something serious and kind of take on like a mentor role. He started working at Jessica's elementary school as a part-time teacher's aide, even started a writing club for the children that Jessyca joined. But Stephen always spent extra time and attention on Jessyca. He would try to separate her from the rest of the kids in the club, and at some point he began to SA her. And that abuse would go on for years. But Jessica's mom was no dummy. She didn't 100% know what was going on, but she just had this mother's intuition that the relationship between Stephen and her young daughter was inappropriate. She did not like the amount of time that he was trying to spend around her young daughter. So Jessica's mother actually marched straight up to her neighbor's house and told Stephen Oliver, "I don't want you seeing my daughter or being around her ever again." And to her surprise, after that conversation, Stephen Oliver just got up and moved away. I'm not gonna lie, it made Jessyca and her mom both extremely happy, but that happiness did not last long because you will never guess where Stephen Oliver moved. Stephen Oliver moved right across the street from Jessica's dad's house, the place that she would go every single weekend. Jessica's mother tried to warn her ex-husband about Stephen because this man is obviously obsessed with their daughter, but he dismissed her concerns and allowed Stephen around their daughter. I really try not to judge Jessica's father in the situation. I try to think it was the 90s. They didn't know as much as we do today. But if I'm only being honest, I do judge Jessica's father in the situation because turns out Stephen Oliver was actually the 3rd man to SA Jessyca under her father's watch. Starting at the age of 5 years old, Jessyca was being SA'd by her father's roommate and one of his girlfriend's fathers who he allowed to babysit Jessyca. Obviously, I don't know the full story here because that information is not out there, but to me personally, if this was able to happen 3 times under his watch, I do have to think that there was some kind of neglectful parenting going on. So back to Stephen Oliver. At this point, obviously, Jessica's mother has tried to warn her ex-husband, but that didn't work. So she tried to do everything she could to keep her daughter away from Stephen, even when she was over at her father's house. She went to a lawyer, she went to a police officer, but they pretty much told her, "You're out of luck, there's nothing you can do." And because they had a court agreement on visitation, she couldn't keep her daughter from going over there because she could also get in trouble or arrested. Well, at this point, Jessyca is in the 7th grade and has been abused by Stephen Oliver for over 4 years. So it's a few days after Jessica's 13th birthday. Stephen Oliver tells her father that he has connections with a publishing company and he thinks that he can get Jessica's writing published. But the two of them would need to go to a meeting together. So Jessica's father not only allowed but encouraged his 13-year-old daughter to get in a car with this creepy man that his ex-wife has warned him about being obsessed with their daughter. And then his daughter did not come home when she was supposed to be dropped back off because 38-year-old Stephen Oliver had just kidnapped 13-year-old Jessyca Mullenberg. It actually took an entire day for Jessica's father to tell his ex-wife that their daughter was missing because I'm sure he felt like a huge a-hole. So by the time Jessyca was even reported missing, she was already in Texas. Steven cut Jessica's hair. He dyed it dark. He told her, from here on out, you are no longer Jessyca Mullenberg. You're going to go by your new name, Cindy Johnson, and you're going to tell people that I'm your father. For over 3 months, Steven kept Jessica in a motel room where he beat her and SA'd her almost every single day. Jessica's disappearance was thankfully aired on an episode of America's Most Wanted, which was extremely popular at the time. So someone who worked at that motel actually recognized them, called a tip-in, and the FBI raided their room where they were able to arrest Steven and get Jessica home safely after she had been missing for over 104 days. Even after Steven was in handcuffs and Jessica was separated from him, she still tried to tell them that my name's not Jessica, my name's Cindy Johnson, because she was so manipulated and scared of this man. Stephen Oliver was sentenced to 40 years in prison. Jessica had quite a hard time coming home after she was kidnapped. For one, she had to have multiple surgeries from all the injuries that Steven gave her, and also she was severely bullied by her classmates. The fact that any child would torment another child for being kidnapped for over 100 days is mind-boggling to me. Doctors thought that Jessica would never be able to have her own kids from the abuse, but today she is married, a mother, and an advocate for other survivors. I thought it was really important to share Jessica's story today, hopefully bring some awareness, especially to any parents that are watching this, to learn the signs. I think it's really important for everyone to know that most children are abused and kidnapped by people that they know. Concept of stranger danger, which I'm sure all of us, or at least most of us, learned when we were kids, made children believe that they could only ever be victimized by some stranger lurking in the shadows. But that's not the case, and the data actually shows us that it's sadly quite the opposite. I know when I'm a mother, I'm going to teach my children about appropriate boundaries and letting them know that they can come to me with absolutely anything.